matter because we're not going to actually use that step. So whichever you pick, it's not going to matter. I'm going to hit the check mark. So now we're good to go and we're ready to stitch out the design. So how do we go about actually stitching this out? So I hooped no-show mesh in my 260 by 200 hoop. You can use other stabilizers. I know some people use like tearaways and stuff. No-show mesh for me works best when I'm doing piecing in the hoop like this. And you can also add a layer of batting at this point if you so desire. A lot of people like putting batting in their mug rugs because it's going to protect your table a little better, sop up any spills, yada yada. That's normally awesome. I don't have any batting handy, so we're just not going to do that right now. So I'm going to go ahead and hit go. It's going to have me double check my settings for the machine. I'm using my sensor Q foot. I have the 260 by 200 hoop. I'm using my zigzag stitch plate. I'm going to tell it continue. It's going to bring my arm in to get it ready. And I'm going to click that on. And now it's going to show me the first step, which is going to be making the base of the quilt block. So I'm going to hold the tail and hit start. So now we have our blank canvas. So the first step we're going to do is going to be put our first piece down, which is going to go down just like any applique piece would. So I'm just going to place my piece of red fabric over that placement line that it drew. I'm going to trim any tails I have sticking off of the fabric like that. If your stitches here don't look as pretty as you'd like them to, don't worry about it. You're not going to see them. Your machine's not designed to just stitch on one layer of stabilizer unless it's doing lace, so it's okay if the stitching looks a little wonky because you're never going to see it at the final product. Okay. If you are working with thin fabrics, if you have any thin cheap fabric or if you have like white fabric that's going to be part of your design, you will want to go ahead and trim these down to about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Because I'm using all nice, bright, vivid colors, it actually does not matter that much for me. So I'm just going to go ahead and go on and get ready to do the next piece. This next piece, instead of doing the full outline, it's just going to do a single line. So then we're going to take our fabric, but instead of placing it directly over the area like we normally would for an applique, we're going to place it upside down like this over that line with about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And it's going to do the line again. Now we're going to go ahead and fold this over that line. You want to fold smoothly, but you don't want to tug too tight, because if you tug too tight, you can see your original line of stitching there. So we're going to actually let it naturally fold over and leave it a little bit loose so that it covers that line of stitching. So then we're going to check mark, and then we're going to start again. have to worry about trimming this perfectly straight, because after all, it's all going to be covered up. That line is going to tell me where to put my next piece of fabric, which we're going to put just like this. If you want to, you can change your thread color to match your fabric with every single one of these. I haven't been, because I'm working with mostly the same color palette, and as you can see, if you're doing it right, you're not going to see any of the stitching anyway. So then we're going to fold that over. Again, we're going to fold it over smoothly, but not super tight, so that you can see the stitching, just so that it's kind of folding over that. And then the next time it's going to do this whole long line, so we can put on the big piece. Embroidery perfection tape or the Kimberbell embroidery tape are your best friends for holding these pieces of fabric in place when you're doing additional pieces, if they start trying to move or wiggle out of place. This block has been so far pretty well behaved, so I haven't really worried about it, but that's what you do if it does become an issue. So make sure we have the back. Again, we're going to make sure the pretty side is down, put it over that whole long line. Sew our seam. Then we're going to fold this again over that line we just made. Oops. And this is where we have to be very careful, because if we don't make it long enough, then you're going to not be able to cover your little opening. So this scrap was just barely big enough, so I'm going to make sure I'm holding that pretty tight while I do this next step. The next step it does is it's going to make the box. Now the box is done, and it would normally go on and do the applique and everything else, but because I want to make this into a bigger mug rug, before I go on to the next step, I'm going to go back to that box that I just did, and I'm going to place this over like this, and I am going to advance the stitches. Until I get to where it's doing the bottom of the box. And then this is where we have a very handy feature that most of us, including me, tend to completely forget that we even have the option. We can embroider using the foot control. So in order to do only the part I want and not do too much, I'm going to go ahead and step on the foot control. And this allows me to slow down as I'm getting near the end. And as soon as I notice it going, starting to go back the other way, I can stop. Cut my scissors. Fold this piece out of the way. And now I'm ready to go on to my heart applique and everything else. So now I'm just going to click on the step for 2-1, which is going to be our placement line for the applique. This is where now I will switch thread colors for my applique, because this thread will show. Okay, now that we have our machine threaded with the next color thread for the applique, we're going to go ahead and start and let it do the applique placement line. If you get the bobbin thread is running low message and you want to continue doing like your still same step, you could just hit start and it'll just keep going for now. Because I'm sure we have enough bobbin thread to at least finish this outline of a heart. All right, now we're going to get ready to attach our applique. And you see how I still did not clear the error message? If you clear the error message, it'll pop up again, but you can keep sewing as long as there's actually thread on the bobbin, as long as you leave the error message up. Your applique fabric, or your applique glitter vinyl, if you get the Kimberville that we're using, will have a plastic cover sheet on it. You will go ahead and just peel this off. And then you can go ahead and place your vinyl on your project. And if you have the Kimberville perfection tape or the embroidered perfection tape, you can use that to tape the corners down. I like living dangerously, so I'm just going to kind of hold it down as I go. So you might be asking why use glitter vinyl instead of fabric. 1, because it's glittery and awesome, and 2, because it's actually easier to remove. You can cut up close to the stitching, and then a lot of times you just tug and it'll rip right along the stitching. So I'm going to go ahead and move my machine to I'm going to go ahead and tell it I don't want to move my bobbin into bobbin position right now, and I'm going to move the machine to trim position so that I can continue just peeling this off. And as you can see, it doesn't always rip perfectly cleanly, but that's okay. That's why we have these little scissors, and having it in the trim position makes it easier than on any other. We're ready to do the applique candle wicking, so here we go. Now that the applique stitching is done, we're ready to do the text. So by default, it's going to stop after every single letter. That's just what these machines do. You have 2 ways of doing this. You can either let it stop after every letter like normal, or you can turn it on to monochrome, but because we have more applique steps coming after the monochrome, I'm going to just let it stop after every single letter. If you're doing text, it's the last thing on a design, you can turn your design monochrome and just let it do all the letters the same color. Now time for the last applique step. So first thing I'm going to do is just do the placement line. So I'm going to kind of pull this nice and tight and smooth and hold that, and then I'm going to go ahead and go. And now this is ready for us to put our backing fabrics on. So we're going to go to the trim position again so we can get this out in front of us where we can see things. And I'm taking my 2 back fabrics. I didn't have quite enough fabric to just have it completely folded over, so I just folded it over about 1 inch. So then I'm going to fold this over and have this covering about half. This is also the point at which you can trim the extra fabric off if you so desire. I'm not going to make you guys sit and wait and watch me to trim that off, so I'm going to just trim it after I'm done with this step. All right, after I have these in place, you are probably going to want to tape these, because otherwise there is a chance of it pulling them open as it goes. So we're going to go ahead and start. This is going to trace over that exact same line it just did, only now we have our fabric in the way. And now that we're done tracing around that shape, it's going to tell us that it's time to do the decorative stitch on the applique. We don't want to do this. We don't want to satin stitch on the outside of what's going to be the inside of our mug rug. So we're just going to stop. We're going to hit the check mark, but instead of going forward, we're just going to go ahead and hit the back arrow to tell it to go back to embroidery edit, because we're all done now. And it's going to tell us to take the hoop off, and we can take the hoop off. And then all this extra stuff we can trim right off. And you can basically trim this within 1/4 inch. So again, it's all going to be inside, so if you leave a little bit of extra that's going to be in there, no one's going to know. Unless you have people in your life that are in the habit of turning your mug rugs inside out. So now we're good to pop it out of the hoop and trim down the stabilizer and flip it right side out. I'll show you what it looks like in just a moment. I just finished flipping it, so this is what we got left. So we are all done, and we got ourselves a beautiful little mug rug. So that can go right on your table, and your drink can go right on it. It's almost too pretty to cover up with a drink, but I think it came out pretty well. So if you have any questions about the Brilliance 85 or your machine at home or anything we sell, feel free to give us a call. Our number at the store is 770-497-2973. And, or just come on by. We look forward to seeing you. Have a great day.